morning, Nick. How you doing? How you doing? Are you patient like the Fed's gonna be or not?
I am patient. I'm running out of patience with people tracking every freaking word they're saying. I mean, the message is always the same.
You
I
know,
mean,
Nick, I got to give you kudos because we were talking on Friday after the close, and we're just kind of looking for the next week. And you said, "Well, it all depends on whether they have the word patient in there." And then Saturday morning, I go to my mailbox, I pick up my Barron's, and what is one of the major columns? Did you steal that from them, or did you come up with that on your own?
what, the patient thing? No,
Yeah,
they've been talking about it. I mean, this
yeah.
is what everybody's obsessed about. I didn't make it up. I can't take credit for that. But they're looking for this one word to whether the cipher is two meetings before they raise rates or whatever. So to me, it's like a coin flip that has like many faces. One that unfolds tomorrow with regards whether the word patient is in there or not. So if she says patient is out, basically, the markets are going to decide that, okay, within the next 2 months, she's going to raise rates. And they're going to freak out a little bit. If she doesn't take the word patient out, she's going to cause a pop, in which, in my case, it's a shortable pop because it's a relief that something bad didn't happen. And the other thing that could happen is she may take the word patient out and then say something like, but that doesn't mean that we're going to do it in 2 months. It just means that we're, quote, data dependent again. So we're just going to react as the data takes us. And that could be like a, what, kind of a reaction. And then, here's a crazy thought. What if she opens the door for QE to talk the dollar down? I don't know. She might
Oh,
do
they
that.
can't do that. They can't do
Well,
that. They can't
they,
go
she,
from talk about raising rates to another round of QE.
She could. I mean, she could say, you know what, we're not going to raise rates right now. And in fact, we're so worried about the new data that we're seeing, this trend of bad this and bad that, that we may even leave the door open. She may say it ridiculously, but the markets will take it literally. This is a ridiculous argument that I'm presenting, but what if she does that? Then that changes my thesis. Otherwise, everything's the same. Rates are going up. Next month after that, next year, I don't care. They're going up. If she says that they're not going up and there actually may be some other form of QE coming, then that changes my basis and I will stop shorting these pops. Until then, I'm shorting most pops.
So your overall thoughts on the market here, are you kind of concerned? I was given just an argument about 10 minutes ago. This doesn't feel like the same bull market that it has for the last 5 years. It feels like investors are more nervous here now. And it feels like stuff, like just from the trading action, it feels like investors are quicker to take profits. They know the rallies don't hold as well as they did. Do you feel like, that's the same, Nick?
I believe that I said that last week on your show. I said there are three bulls. The 2013 bull was scary, snorting,
Yeah, yeah,
drooling,
yeah. I remember
sitting.
you saying this. Yeah.
Yeah, and the 2014 bull was shortable all year long if you did it via credit call spreads ahead of it and managed it well, because it was kind of iffy, but it was still pretty good. This bull here this year is gutless. Yes, it's got all-time highs, but as soon as fly goes by, boom, sell, sell, sell. So they're quick to sell, quick to buy. So there's no conviction. It's like they don't believe they're up here. All the bulls are looking around. It's like, can you believe we're this high? I can't believe we're this high. It is a situation where you need a positive catalyst to run up from here. Where is it coming from? Growth? No, they're stopping a debacle in Europe. Japan can't get growth for anything in the world. And we're okay. We're not going to leap up from here. Where is the big catalyst up? I don't see it, and therefore I can short everything cautiously via credit call spreads and leave 5-10% margin from here. They're boring trades, but guess what? They pay the bills. So
Okay, Nick, let's go into some trending tickers here, and a lot of news surrounding Alibaba. I know you've had that on your radar. It looks like all of a sudden they decided the Snapchat investment was good. They took it up yesterday. Still kind of range bound, 80, 86. Ran in trouble at 85.20 yet. You think Baba's out of the woods?
it all depends on the lockup. I think it's coming up this week or next week,
18th,
sometime.
18th.
It depends on what happens on that day. But in theory, I still say that Alibaba, if the fraud issue is behind them and indeed it's not going to affect their P&L, I mean, and if the markets don't get correct heavily from here, it should be okay in the long run. I have a very small long position in it via calls, so kind of like a few dollars to participate on the upside, so I don't get left behind. I do like the story, but you have to be careful. Put it in context of markets are at all-time highs or close to, especially the small caps. So all of this, it has headwinds, but if what's going on now continues, it has the potential of breakout. So if it breaks out the 85 level, it may get to 90 pretty quickly, and then there it has another decision to make. And I think 91-ish is another bigger decision to make to break up to the outside. Now, the open interest this week might have some limitations on it, and I think 85 is going to be a little sticky area for it, so kind of a magnet. 87 is another level to look at.
Did we lose you, Nick?
The 90 this week is going to be pretty tough to break out. Here? I'm
yeah,
here.
okay.
Hello.
Nick, just
Yeah.
if you don't mind, telling us. I know you trade different time frames. Do you mind telling us what you have on in Alibaba? Just like the time frame that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Did you go with a spread or outright calls?
I have a spread in April, 95 100. It was a lottery ticket. This way, I don't worry about it if I lose it, and if it comes true, then I made a hefty return on. And these are what I call lotto tickets. It's a small expense with a low degree of success, but the payout is nice. This psychologically gets me involved into it, and if it starts carrying some momentum, then I'll add serious money with some straight-up calls. Usually I like to trade Alibaba via longer-dated calls to give myself time to be right. So if I want to do that, I'll go out to leaps and I'll buy calls that are close to the money. This way, I participate immediately. But at this point, I don't have enough faith in the market in order to go all in anything long.
Nick, what did that 95 100 cost? Just curiously, like what?
Like 29 cents. The potential payout is the difference between $5 and 29 cents.
So yeah, so you're looking at $4.70, so like a 15-to-1 risk reward or something like that. Just quick math.
Right. So it's literally a lottery ticket. It's an amount of money that I say, okay, if I lose it, when you buy a lottery ticket, you no longer think about the $1 or $2 you spent on the ticket. You're thinking, when is the drawing? How much can I win? So this is the same case here. So if I lose it, I'm not that worried about it. I can make it up with one credit spread in 1 week. So it's literally nothing that occupies my mind except on the upside.
Rodney's just at what strike was it? What month were you looking at again?
April.
April.
So I gave myself a little over 30 days, and the strike is at 95. So it's obviously ridiculous from here. Hence the price. Yeah. But you never know. Remember, GoPro I think had some pretty funky action around the lockup expiration when everybody expected it was going to sell off. It had a huge day, and all it takes is one big day, and you can sell it way before the expiration. And one big day, this 29 cents could double, and you cash out of it if you want to, not to wait, and redeploy it somewhere more realistic as far as an investment.
Moving on here, we talked last week about Apple and the open interest at the 124, 125 level, and we were changing notes back and forth, and I'm like, Nick, it's traded above 124. How can you call 124 resistance? And you gave me a real good explanation. Could you just, share that explanation with our listeners, and also tell us, it's early, it's Tuesday in the week, what you're looking at for the open interest in the Apple weekly options?
Sure. Sometimes I word things where in my head it works out. So we were debating, and I said 124 is resistance this week, and it was already at like 124.40 or something like that. So in my opinion, when I say that, it means that 124 level is going to exert some downside pressure. It's close enough that it's going to exert some downside pressure. So I should reword it to say, okay, 124, I see some source of downside pressure. And when I say there's a magnet, like if I'm looking at this week, there's a magnet at 125, and it's somewhat resistive. So it's going to pull prices towards 125, but once it gets there, it's going to start to stop it and slow it down. Another magnet is at 130, but it's almost all resistance. So, and there's one at 120, which is equal power. So the 120 resistance will actually exert some downside pressure if prices start falling down, but falling backwards. But I see that in the pre-open, for some reason now it just spiked to 125.33 from the close of 124.95 yesterday. So something must have happened overnight with regards to headlines.
Nick, got a stock from the chat. One of your fans there, Rob Hood's, asking you about GRFS. I don't know if you follow this one at all. I do not. But you could probably give us a technical on it. I'm not sure if it has options or not on it either, but we're looking at Griffel's GRFS.
Yeah, I definitely do not track this stock, but if I look at 2 years, I expanded to 2 years to get some. It seems like it had it tested the 45 area and it was quickly rejected, and the action in it is more at that price was more head and shoulder-ish than anything, and indeed it brought it down to the mid 29.30 area during probably the October correction. And I don't have any faith in it higher than here, technically speaking. So levels to watch are 36 and 31. If it loses 31, probably will come down to like the 28, 29 area. If it pops 36 again, maybe it wants to revisit the 39, 40 area. But at this point, I mean, I can't offer anything more than that. And I doubt that it has big options that I could get you, open interest information from that.
Another stock I always ask you about is Priceline here, Nick. I know you like to trade this one too, and it had that incredible move in February from 1,000 up to 1,250. Well, in the last couple of weeks, we have just quietly given back 100 points here of that move. It's in kind of a little gap area here right now. What are your thoughts on Priceline going forward?
I love it. It paid my bills for a long time.
Yeah, you're always all over this. That's why I love asking you about it.
When I'm looking at, I have a green box on my chart. I should have loaded it and posted it there. But anyway, I was looking at the 1,200, and I think last time we spoke, or a couple times before that, I said 1,200 is important, and if it loses it, it comes down to 1130 possibility. So I'm still looking at a box between 1175 and 1130 that is kind of like a corridor. So if market's correct, it will break 1100 in my opinion in a jiffy. If market's stabilized, I don't see any specific reasons for Priceline to fall down. So I am shorted and via debit put spreads, and I use this week's and next week's, and I also find some with some lower credit put spreads, kind of like a calendar type of thing where I bring in some money to offset some of the costs. So if it comes down to 1130, I'll profit a little more money from it, but I don't expect a debacle unless the markets actually break down. Levels to watch is it broke out of the 1100 area not too long ago, and then it came up to 1275 and it sailed back down. But the corridor is what I'm looking at is 1175 to 1130. That's a pretty important area, and it's very market dependent.
Nick, you got to help us out with LinkedIn here. Morgan Stanley put in the top with their 310 price target on the 26. We've come back down. Breen Capital, not so positive on the stock. What do you do when a stock gets into a gap similar to Priceline, but what are your thoughts on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, I was never a fan of the company or the stock. And I just don't think they're too honest with how they report their numbers, because I know they used to count me as a member and I wasn't even signed up. They used to send me email, hey, so-and-so is trying to hook up with you, and I didn't even have an account at the time, neither did she, one specific person in my mind. And they used to do the same things to her. So it's like, how are they doing this? Are they getting into my email box? Something was up with that. I don't know how they do it. So it's a little sketchy with their marketing methods. As far as technically speaking, I thought it was shortable before the gap up, and I was looking at on the bottom end. There's if it loses, okay, so now it's a gap. I didn't check this morning's price. So if it's down and it comes back into the area of 240, then I'm watching 240 and 225. If it loses 225, it can get down to 200 pretty quickly, and there's a ridiculous scenario of down to 170. So if market's correct, I would not be surprised to see it lose the 200 level.
Nick, one more here before we let you go. Tesla, TSLA, has been flirting with this 185, 188 level here for the past couple of months. Every time it gets down there, it appears to bounce out of there. It was hanging out down here and it's looking like maybe eventually it's going to take out that support level. But then yesterday the stock just popped up here and we're off of it again here. What are your thoughts on Tesla? Do you think this support area holds, or how are you playing Tesla?
Tesla is playing with fire right here. If it loses that 195,
Looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Yeah, I bet you he pops back right in 1 second. Nikki?
you're here.
Okay.
There he is.
Yep.
We just lost
Okay.
you just for a second. So yeah,
Yeah.
just a technical look on Tesla.
Yep, Tesla is playing with fire here. So if it loses the 195, 180 area, technically it has no reason to stop until it hits like 160. So because it all depends on what he says, and he says the weirdest things out of nowhere. So I always said the biggest risk to Tesla's stock price is his tweeting and his speaking. He should take a lesson. He, as an Elon, should take a lesson from CEOs like the guy from CRM, Benioff, with how to represent his company so not to affect the stock price negatively. So I know you don't need to talk your stock up as much as Benioff, but at least don't say stuff that could hurt it. And so I can't. I have to watch the 210 area with regards to breakout potential. So if you can get there, maybe it gets back to 240. But based on what? They seem to be missing on everything. And the factory is a bigger risk than anybody gave it attention or gave it weight when he first chose which area is he going to build the factory in. He said some things that scared me because he said, I chose this area even though they offered me more money in other areas because here they assured me that the completion time would be feasible. And then he said, because it's so important. And to me, it's so important means there's money depending on it. And guess what? Now there's talk of Gigafactory, or at least last week was, issues with completion dates. So that's the question mark. Is it built into the stock price? I don't think it is, like hiccups in the Gigafactory.
One more before we let you go, and you're probably going to think you're looking at the LinkedIn chart, but Netflix. That downgrade got it yesterday. I wasn't willing to fade it, and I should have. Gapping in, not quite into a gap area here. Your thoughts on Netflix before we let you go?
Sure, no problem. I have instead of a green box here, I have a red box. I was watching in Netflix, and that would be somewhere between 435 and I can't read it from here. It's 417, 418 area. That's pretty important to hold. And if it loses this area, it's going to get into this open gap. So, 360, 365, 370. I don't see a reason for it to revisit the highs without a new headline. And if the markets are indeed extended in general and they do correct a little bit, this one is vulnerable. So if somebody wants to play put spreads, small amount of money to cash out big if it happens, this would be a place to put money in.
Nic Chahine, author of Create Income with Option Spread, joins us every Tuesday to discuss the week's option outlook and also longer term. Nick, thanks for joining us. Great information as usual. We'll speak to you next week.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.